right, everybody, and welcome back. We're still live at Orlando, Florida. We're at the IACIS training down here, which is again, if you have attended the last session at all, we talked kind of in detail some of the things that go on here. It's Orlando, Florida. If you need to go computer forensic training or any kind of really digital investigation, because it's so much more than just computer forensics anymore. And you tend to know the guys that have been in the area a little bit, because we still say computer forensics, and it's really not the case much. That there's OSINT type technologies, learning abilities here. There's we talked a little bit about Mac, talked about mobile forensics. We're going to touch on mobile and how it's driving really the desktop now, or the computers now, which it used to be the other way around. And now we've seen the complete shift in it. And that was an interesting topic you mentioned to me in pre that it happens. First, I have Alan Thomas here, by the way. So Alan's
Good morning, Kevin.
Thank you. You've been around computer forensics for maybe a couple years.
Yeah, a few years now. I started, my first experience of digital forensics was in the last century. Shows how old I am. My first experience was in the late 90s. I'm from London in the United Kingdom.
So that's what the accent. I thought that was South Jersey or something.
No.
All right, gotcha.
No, New York. No, I live in London, civilization as I call it. Right. And I was in the police in London for 31 years.
Wow.
I was a Scotland Yard detective for the last 15 years of my service.
Mm-hmm.
Scotland Yard is really just the headquarters building of the Metropolitan Police Service, and they police London. But being the UK, there's got to be something weird about it. The City of London have their own police force.
Yes.
The city's known as the Square Mile because it's a very small commercial area in the middle of the town, and they have their own police force called the City of London Police. Mm-hmm. I was in the Metropolitan Police Service, which is the London police that police everything else.
It's much larger.
Much larger.
Yeah.
So I was a financial investigator.
Oh.
And I was sitting quite happily working on the Central London Crime Squad, doing mainly drug money laundering and drug traffickers. And I worked with somebody at that time who was interested in computers. Mm-hmm. Early days, I didn't know anything about computers, but he taught me a few things, and I could use a spreadsheet. And we laugh now, but a spreadsheet in those days was a business tool.
Yeah, at the time, that's advanced.
I could also print an envelope.
And I still can't do that
this
today.
Made me the computer expert.
Right.
And in the late 90s, there was a covert scoping exercise done in London around criminality in the Metropolitan Police Service. They realized they had a problem, and they did. So they formed a special unit to investigate it. A lot of the criminality by police officers was around drug trafficking. So I was approached to join it, and I initially refused because I said it's not my thing.
Right.
I really don't want to do that. And then a friend of mine came to see me and said, listen, this is organized crime. This is an entry into organized crime. It would be a good thing to do. And he convinced me to do it. And it was probably the most interesting thing I did in my police service. And some of the criminality was outrageous.
Really?
Yeah. Up to and including conspiracies to murder and things like that.
Wow.
We had drug squads in London who, if they would do a search, they would seize the drugs, seize the money. Mm-hmm. Half of the money and half of the drugs would go into the exhibit system. The other half would mysteriously disappear. The drugs were recycled through...
So translation a little bit. The exhibit system is the court system, basically.
Yeah, okay. It would be put into the police system.
Translating from proper English to our English.
I mean, we had people who were working on drug squads who had informants who... One guy had an informant who was a woman. He was having a relationship with her. She was a drug dealer. They would recycle the drugs through her. He would get a lot of fantastic intelligence.
Yeah.
Because she was a drug dealer, and she was using him to get rid of the opposition. So It was interesting. I mean, what I'll give you another example. We had a private investigation company in South London, and they had a bit of a reputation.
Uh-huh.
The guy walks into their office one day and said, "I'm going through an acrimonious divorce from my wife. She wants custody of the children. We're fighting over it. It's getting nasty. I want to see if there's anything I can do. Can you help me? Is there anything you can do?" And they said, "Yeah, we'll have her arrested for drug dealing." And he went, "What?" "No, we'll have her arrested for drug dealing." He said, "Can you do that?" They said, "Yeah." He
There
said,
might be
"How
some
much?"
viewers now.
Yeah,
Can that
so
be done?
I've forgotten the exact figures, but it was something like £8,000.
Really?
They bought £2,000 worth of cocaine with the intention of planting it in her house. They couldn't get in her house, so they planted it in her car. And they got a corrupt police officer to put an intelligence report in saying that she was drug dealing. She ended up being arrested. We let everything run through the system. We even filmed the people putting the drugs in the car. We let it run through the system.
So you knew about it
Oh,
way in advance.
I'm not going to tell you how we knew about
all
it,
right.
but we knew exactly what was going on.
Okay.
And she was arrested.
Yeah.
She was taken to the police station, interviewed, denied it, said, "I don't know what that's all about." Bailed from the police station while the drugs were analysed, and the following day there's a knock on her door from a senior police officer from Scotland Yard saying, "I need to tell you a story." But I mean, that's the sort of thing that was going on.
That's insane.
Yeah. So the other one was we became aware of a money launderer who was working for drug traffickers, and he had developed a bit of a gambling habit, and he was going into these cheap casinos and spending all their money. Uh-oh.
Yeah.
Yeah, you know what's coming, don't
Yeah.
you? So they come for their money, and he obviously doesn't have it, so he goes on the run. We discover that this is happening, and we found him before the bad guys. So we put him in protective custody. We then took his credit card and his car and a load of personal possessions, and we put them in a hotel room. We checked him into the hotel, we put his car outside the hotel, we started spending on his credit card. He was being tracked on the credit card by corrupt police officers.
What?
They turn up at the hotel with one of the drug dealers.
Uh-huh.
They give the drug dealer cable ties, plastic handcuffs.
Yeah.
The two of the drug dealers managed to get themselves into the room. They managed to convince one of the room cleaning ladies that they need access to the room. They were let in. They spent 24 hours in the room. The room was wired for sound and vision, talking about what they were going to do to this guy when they got hold of him.
Oh my goodness.
That's why I say it was one of the most interesting things I've ever done. It was also, like we ended up taking people to prison, I took a police officer to Wandsworth prison and dropped him off, which really is a sobering kind of. But anyway, long story short, we weren't using any police facilities. We had our own surveillance facilities. We had a base outside of London. We broke a lot of the rules around what sort of vehicles you use and things like that.
Sure.
As a result, we weren't using the computer systems lab in London. We were using a private company. My boss came to me and said, "I'm not too confident about what they're doing. It's costing me a lot of money. I'd want you to have a little look around and see whether you can do it and what it would cost us and what's involved." So one of the early things we discovered was IACIS. I managed to convince my boss to send me to Florida for 2 weeks.
What a horrible place from London. Well, you don't see the sun
this time of
terribly
year,
often,
especially. So he's like looked at it and went, "What? We're Orlando? Yeah, really?"
Is he thinking I'm going to have to start investigating this guy now?
So anyway, I came here, which really was the start of my education. I'd done a couple of courses in the UK. We were using some very old technology in the UK. But coming here was a real leg up for me. I was fortunate in the early days. I didn't actually end up going to court and giving evidence early on because I now realize how little I knew. But coming here was a significant help to me. I did the certification process. It was hard work. We were busy at work.
Oh, yeah.
You've got to put a bit of effort into it. I passed that. I came back as a certification coach. So for about 10 years, I was mentoring and coaching people who were going through the process. And then I came on staff as a live coach here. I've done road coaching, I've done teaching. I tend to do file systems, disk structures, numbering systems, and stuff like that.
Oh, the ones that make the students' brains melt
Well,
slowly.
not so much. I mean, I think numbering systems is a good one to start with.
Yeah.
You know, if you get numbering systems off, and it's simple.
Yeah.
It really is simple. And once the penny drops, you go, why did I never realize that? You know? And my question to all people who are in the digital forensics world, who think they know hexadecimal, A6, what is that in decimal?
I can't convert it that fast. Yeah.
It's really, really simple. If you understand hexadecimal, A is 10. 10 is sitting in the 16s column. 6 is 6. It's sitting in the 1s column. 16 times 10 plus 6 gives you 166. How easy is that?
That is easy.
Who knew that?
Why didn't I have you as an
Why
instructor?
didn't anyone ever tell me?
That's right.
A6. Can you convert that to binary? Right. The left-hand 4
Yeah,
bits.
I'd have to do it to
10. 8
break
and
it down
2
to
are turned
bits.
on.
Yeah.
1, 0, 1, 0. The right-hand 4 bits, 6.
6 is
4 and 2
0.
are turned on.
Yeah.
0,
1,
1, 1, 0.
1, 0. Yeah.
Easy.
Yeah.
How simple is that?
I'm actually envisioning the chart with the numbers still
So when
underneath.
people say to me, oh, you know, it's all complicated, it isn't. It isn't. It's very simple.
Right.
So, yeah. And I've been coming here now for probably done this conference 20 times.
Oh, wow.
And as of this afternoon, I think technically I'm joining the board.
That's right.
So,
you had mentioned that.
yeah.
That's congratulations on that. So
I've just been in
is
the
it
last
is it Sir
election.
Thomas then? Is it?
Be nice,
yeah.
wouldn't it? Be nice. I don't think the Queen's or the King's gonna knight me, but yeah.
Well, I think it should be. That's quite the achievement. 20 years. Of course, it's Orlando, so it's hard to feel really good because it's such an awesome place.
Yeah, but I have difficulty telling people, you know, we spend 2 weeks in an air-conditioned conference facility without seeing the sunshine.
It's true.
But we've had some good middle weekends,
Yeah.
I have to say, over the years. Yeah.
Yeah. And what's the role you're taking again? I know you.
I'm going to become the director of ethics.
What does that involve?
Ethics is essentially doing the right thing.
Right.
One of the things we like to do is protect our certifications. They have, I think they have real value, probably more
Absolutely.
in the US than outside of the States, but they have real value. And when I say protect them, we need to identify people who are not doing them properly. And I'm not going to beat about the bush, people who are cheating.
Yep.
We have methodologies to detect that.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Good.
Quite sophisticated methodologies.
Don't give it away because don't give it away.
That was going to be the question. What are those? I'm not telling you.
No, I won't do it.
So we have quite sophisticated methodologies for detecting it, and every year, sadly, we do detect people cheating.
Wow.
If that is the case, we will remove all your certificates and you'll leave the organization. So if you've done the CFCE certification properly, you've worked late at night, you've worked over the weekends, you've done it all.
Easy.
You're a member of good standing, and then you do the advanced or the mobile course, and you cheat on that certification, you lose your CFCE as well, and you're expelled from the organization. And I think it would be a brave person who would go to court and try and give evidence, having been through that situation. I mean, where I come from, we have something called an expert witness status. So the bar under English and Welsh law is not very high. An expert witness is somebody who knows more than the man in the street.
Yeah, that's pretty much here.
Yeah. So if you go to court, you're taken through your training, your certification and everything like that. And the judge will say, yes, I accept you as an expert witness. The difference between an expert witness and a normal witness is an expert witness can give opinion.
Yes.
A normal witness can't. And I'm assuming it's the same in the States.
Indeed it is.
When I joined the police in London in 1977, before a lot of your listeners were probably born,
I would agree.
as a uniformed police officer, you were an expert witness in one subject and one subject only. That was an automatic thing.
Really?
Yeah, and that subject was drunkenness.
Was that from experience, or was that from observation?
You could go to court and you could say, this man was unsteady on his feet, His speech was slurred.
Uh-huh.
His breath smelt of alcohol. He was drunk. He was drunk is an opinion. So
Yeah.
you're an expert witness of that.
Excellent.
But that was the only subject. But the rest of the time, you know, you've got to convince the judge that you have some kind of knowledge. And although I say, you know, the bar is knowing more than the man in the street, most people know significantly more than the man in the street. So,
Right.
yeah. So IACIS has been a real benefit to me in my work. And of course, you're then part of the IACIS community, the IACIS listserv. You know, there's a couple of thousand people around the world. If you have a problem, you bang an email out and you generally get a reply pretty quickly.
Not just one, normally.
No, yeah, a number
You
of
get
them.
a lot.
So,
Yeah.
it's been good.
Yeah, it's one of I hold this organization as one of the highest in the industry. It's my opinion, obviously, but I think a lot of people would agree with that. Is if you're looking for really good forensic training, it's well thought out.
Yeah.
Through everything, through your day one in the large room here, all the way up through the advanced courses.
Well, you know, this organization has been in existence and has been training law enforcement before most of the vendors and the software tools that we use were even invented or thought about, you know?
Yeah.
I remember NCASE being launched here back in the day, you know, so there's probably no other organization in the world quite like it. They've been doing it for a long time, and we're tool agnostic.
Right.
So we're not teaching you how to use a tool.
Correct.
We're teaching you what actually the principles and what goes on under the hood. You know, we have this joke, we call it Nintendo forensics. I don't know if you have the term here, but you know, some people who can press a button.
Push button forensics.
You have it sometimes when you turn up at court, defense experts. You know, we've had a lot of very good, very knowledgeable defense experts turn up. But we've also had the IT guy from the solicitor's firm, you know, and he says, I can't replicate your keyword searches. So we say, have you tried Unicode as well as ASCII? And they say, what's Unicode? You know, and you think, should you really be at court as an expert?
Probably
but, hey,
not,
you know,
but it happens. Again, it's that standard. It's the same here in the U.S. Which is, I think it should be based off of a certification of a different type of standard. But that's my opinion.
We had one once who he was a visiting professor at a university. He sat on government committees. When you heard him talk, he was just so clever and so knowledgeable. He was representing the defense on a terrorist trial. If he wrote a report which, had it been true, would have meant we were fitting people up with terrorism. My guy spent a weekend writing, countering all his arguments. And in the end, it's not an exaggeration to say he ran away. He literally ran out of the building and couldn't get out there quickly enough because he didn't really know what he was doing. It was to do with link files and repass points and things like that. We were saying that these CDs had been put into different computers and stuff. You know, it was a conspiracy to blow up a shopping center. They had got the plans for all the gas pipelines. They discovered that one of these gas pipelines ran under a shopping center, and they wanted to put an improvised explosive device onto the gas mains to blow the shopping center up. So it wasn't like...
I wouldn't even know how to even discover that.
They had a corrupt person in the gas board who gave them a CD with all the plans on it.
So that was the CD you were tracking.
That's the CD we were tracking using link files and stuff like that.
Excellent. Yeah. That's an excellent way. Yeah, to track that down. Very good.
Yeah.
Very good.
So interesting.
Yeah, it sounds like you've had a pretty interesting career.
Yeah.
And I know we titled this something we haven't even talked about yet.
Yeah.
Which is fine because I personally rather learn about someone's path and experience because it's much more interesting than mine by any means. But and I always like to see someone's individual experience in the digital forensic and how they came to where they're at today.
Yeah.
And yours is probably one of the most unique ones I've heard to date. And I've heard quite a few.
So I worked for this organization called CIB3 where we were doing corruption.
Mm-hmm.
And in 2005, I went to what was known as SO13 at Scotland Yard, which was the anti-terrorist branch, just through that busy period.
Mm-hmm.
And we were talking about it earlier on before we started. You know, we used to have a computer systems lab and a phone lab.
Okay,
and
so they were separate.
At the time, they were separate. And at the time, you know, you think about handsets before the smartphone, they had their own specific file systems. They had their own specific operating systems.
Yes.
If you're a computer guy, it was smoke and mirrors. It was like, so we probably avoided it. It is the honest truth. Over the years, you know, and they were to a large extent telephones at the time.
Right.
You know, they're not now. I always say, you know, this is my handset. I'm trying to call them mobile devices. This is a computer.
Yeah. It
uses a GPT. It's got an Apple operating system on it that's very similar to my MacBook. Mm-hmm. It's got a file system on it that is the same. A JPEG is a JPEG, you know. And what do I use it for? You know, the majority of my use of this is not telephony. Mm-hmm. This is a computer with the ability to do a bit of telephony. So that has been a radical change. And now, if I was still in law enforcement, I wouldn't have that separation. Everybody would be doing everything.
Right.
One, because mobile devices are the majority of a lot of people's workload. And secondly, it's the same old, same old.
Yep.
So that's really the big change.
And it's interesting, just over the years, and I don't consider it that long, but in technology, I guess it's an eternity of how it switched from 98% of the work was all desktop computers, servers that you were dealing with, and then within how long do you say? Because it's been a while since I've actually done anything to do with forensics. Yeah. When do you think the major change finally tilted the scales over towards mobile?
Yeah. I mean, I think 1995, that period was significant for computers because it was when the internet, or the World Wide Web, took off, which was invented by the British, of course.
I thought Al Gore invented that.
No, he invented the algorithm.
Okay, gotcha.
That's why his name's Al Gore, you see. So that was significant, and that we started getting computers in home addresses. Mm-hmm. 2008, around that time, I can't remember the exact date, I think the launch of the iPhone. I think that was the start of the smartphone revolution. Yep. I think it was the first time I ever heard the term smartphone. And it probably took about 5 years from then for them to become unbelievably sophisticated and popular, causing the rise in social media and everything else. I mean, to some extent, you know, if you can get into it, I mean, youngsters these days, everything's online. Yeah. Their lives are on their handsets. They socialize everything. We've had situations in the UK where somebody's murdered somebody and taken a selfie outside the house, you know, which has been recovered and used in evidence. You know, we had one I thought was quite interesting. A guy's version of events is that he comes home from work one day, opens the front door and says, "Hello, darling, I'm home." Gets no reply. Goes upstairs and finds his wife dead in the bedroom. She's been stabbed. He runs into the street shouting, "Murder most foul, call the police." The police are called. That's his version of events. Mm-hmm. What actually happened was he was involved in a relationship with a man. He wanted to get rid of his wife. They wanted to claim the insurance and sell the house and move to Australia and set up life together. He had an Apple watch on, and he had a handset. And the police were able to demonstrate that he arrived home. He went up and down the stairs about 3 times. He ran around the house. His heart rate was elevated, etc., etc. And it completely destroyed his argument, and he was convicted of her murder as a result. You know, you think about that really, when I joined the police, you know, I remember when we got pagers. Yeah, and we thought, wow, you know, this is like really sophisticated. Look at me, I've got a pager.
And you can spell.
Look at me.
A couple of things you can spell.
You know. So, I mean, it's the level of communication is huge. I've got a slide that's very, very old now of a dot matrix sign in the Vodafone headquarters showing the number of calls that have been made and the number of social media connections that have been made over a 12-hour period. And it's like, and this slide will now be 15 years old, and it's like 4 million and
Imagine.
6 million. You know, so the amount of communication out there is just so huge, and of course, it's a problem to law enforcement because you've got to pick your way through it.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah, and the technologies that you were just mentioning, because Vodafone, for those of you who don't know, here in the U.S., it's like the Verizon. Actually, I think they own 40%. What you said earlier.
They did own 48% of Verizon.
Okay.
Many years ago. Vodafone don't like having a minority stake. It's not a good business model for them. So they sold. They had invested $10 billion in Verizon. They sold their stake back to Verizon for $120 billion. As a result of that, I got some shares. So I'm a shareholder in Verizon.
Oh,
I pay tax in the USA. I always say no taxation without representation. You know, where's my vote? But
right, exactly.
but yeah. And the other big change, I think, is that mobile technology in the last definitely 5, probably 10 years has been driving what's going on.
Oh, yeah.
You know, it used to be the case a few years ago. We have something called PC World. You used to have Comp USA. Do you still have Comp USA?
Yeah, I think we had both the magazine PC World.
Yeah, we have a store called PC World.
Okay.
Our PC World is the equivalent of Comp USA.
Oh, okay. Excellent.
So you used to go to Comp USA and you'd buy a tower computer you take home, set up in the room. Everybody would use it.
Right.
It would normally heat the house and things like that. Then
That's true.
You stop buying that. If you're a normal computer user, you stop buying that, you buy a laptop. And there were a few years when we were all buying laptops. We're now buying tablets. You know, even if you buy what looks like a laptop computer, it's more akin to a tablet.
It's the one that's running this right now.
Yeah. It's more akin to a tablet than it is to the old computers that we were looking at. And a lot of the technology that's been developed for mobile devices has transitioned into those. So things like solid state storage, you know, some of the chips, some of the encryption, some of the storage methodologies they use. You know, SQLite is transitioning across now.
Yeah.
So it has kind of driven the technology, and it's changed quite dramatically in that respect. And I suspect that out there in the real world, the majority of people's caseloads now are mobile devices of one form or another.
Yeah, we've been seeing that as we talk to people like yourself. It's active examiners, been active examiners. They're seeing the major shifts over the last several years of mobile technology just taking over. It was rare we would get a mobile phone, and then it was always a flip phone that we wouldn't have the proper cable for because everyone was different.
Yeah.
And you'd have to go down to the store to purchase the cable or get a cable for the thing, or hopefully another lab would have it. But yeah, and now it's completely different. Now it's everything's standardized for the most part. USB-C is now pretty much taken over. There's still some Lightning out there, still in some old iOS devices. And man, for the most part, it's
and the GSM Association had a campaign many years ago to actually standardize charging cables, and they were fairly successful on it. And they got most people to go with that micro USB, except for Apple. Yeah. Apple are always going to do their own thing. But I think USB-C may become the standard.
Yeah, I think so. I don't know where.
And if you're in mobile phone,
C on Apple.
Yeah. If you're in mobile phone forensics and you don't know about the GSM Association, have a look at their website, register on it, and they are the people who own the standards really on GSM handsets. And there's a lot of technical stuff on there. You know, eSIMs, which are going to become de facto soon. You can look that up on there. There's some interesting papers, and you get a real good understanding. So I would recommend the GSM Association.
Oh, yeah, it's excellent.
Yeah.
Excellent, because they kind of line out, even the technologies. It used to be CDMA was here, U.S. dominant, and now it's shifted to the rest of the world. We've caught up to the rest of the world with GSM technologies. And
GSM is kind of 95% of the world is GSM now. The interesting thing is that I have had people say to me that CDMA is actually a better system but they've lost out. You know, like Betamax and VHS.
Right.
If you can remember that,
I
you're
do.
old. But even then, you know, you look at handsets and you look at the data channels, and you'll see something called WCDMA.
Hmm.
And I used to get confused by this. I used to look at it and think, well, hang on a minute, this is a GSM phone. Why are they talking about CDMA? It's something called wide CDMA that they use on the data channels. So even a lot of GSM handsets are technically using wide CDMA as well. So
I was explained it was like the multi-lane highway, like in your city. The GSM or the CDMA was like the multi-lanes. You could push more data.
Yeah.
Is that accurate? Would you say that was semi-accurate? And the GSM was the voice and the actual technology.
It's actually encoding the data transfer differently, but yeah, it's a better method of doing it. And actually, the voice channels, you know, they don't require a lot of bandwidth.
Right.
It's the data channels. I mean, and the mobile vendors have concentrated, the networks have concentrated on data because data's where they make their money. Data's the big one. And so they put a lot of time and effort. And probably, you know, you can remember before 3G, it was a bit clunky and it was definitely slow. 3G was a huge step forward.
It's huge. I do remember when that was released.
Yeah, so I used to have a Nokia, I think it was a 502, something like that, which could get me on the internet. I would go on the internet if I really had to. It was a painful, slow experience.
Yeah.
The first iPhone I got, and it was when it was running on 3G, I'd sit there and I'd be looking at stuff on the internet like we do now.
Yeah.
And that was my first experience of doing it. Oh, I'm a bit bored, I'll just have a look. You know, whereas previous to that, you didn't, because if I really needed to find a phone number, I'd go on the Nokia and I'd go onto the handset, you know. And Nokia are a great example of how things change. They were the largest handset manufacturers in the world by a country mile. They didn't think that the smartphone would catch on, so they didn't get into it.
Yeah.
You know?
Where are they at now?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
not some foresight for sure. Yeah, and it's interesting how that the technology is always evolving. I mean, what we're seeing today, I mean, as fast it is. I literally finally just upgraded to a 5G phone. I know I'm way behind the times, but I just upgraded to it. And who knows what it's going to be in just a short 5 years from now, the technology that's driving out. Because like you had said earlier, I think it was prior to going live, you had mentioned the chips inside the mobile are now actually the chips inside my laptop, not vice versa. And a lot of advantages that obviously I got a lot more battery and power savings. And it's driving it opposite.
Yeah, my first Apple handset, if you used it, the battery lasted half a day. If you were lucky.
Yeah.
If you didn't use it, it would last a day. But battery technology has improved dramatically.
Yeah.
So, and sometimes it has advantages to us. You know, everybody's geolocated permanently now, and things like that. Right. So, if you can exploit that, that's great.
Yeah, so many advantages to it. I mean, if you look at the basic laptop, which I think most people have a laptop. Of course, most people are, I think, sticking maybe just to their mobile. Like my wife, for example, who is not technology savvy in the slightest. If it wasn't for the nerd husband that she has, she's probably still be on a really old device. But she switched over and she's everything. She has a laptop. She never opens it. Collects dust, and she does everything from her mobile device. Yeah. So we may have to lean in a little bit as it gets louder. It's actually pretty quiet.
Yeah, it's interesting when you talk about wives. My wife is much smarter than me.
Yeah.
She's much better looking. Technology has passed her by. She doesn't understand it. You know, at home, I hit the print button, the printer goes dunk, 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 and my printing comes out. At home, my wife hits the print button. That's 25 minutes of my life I'm not going to get back, you know? When I was training, I used her as an example. But I also argue that this is the first time that I think, and I really remember, people are using a technology they have no understanding of.
Right.
You know, my wife, she's not technical. She's not interested in computers. She just wants to do what she wants to do.
Mm-hmm.
A car, she understands how it works. You know, engine, gearbox, petrol.
Sure.
She's not a mechanic. She couldn't fix a car, but she has a basic understanding of how it works. An aeroplane.
Mm-hmm.
She has a basic understanding of how an aeroplane works with lift and all the rest of it. Computer networks, wah, wah, no idea whatsoever. And it's also a danger because, you can get compromised through ignorance very, very easily. But it is, a lot of people out there are using a technology they have no understanding of. And sometimes that can be not such a good thing.
Right. Should have a basic understanding of most things that you do. Well, Alan, thank you very much. I know the class is getting out here, and it's actually surprisingly not that loud. Normally, when they come rushing through those doors, we get charged. Hold on to the tables because here they come. Everyone ran for the restrooms, it looks like. So we're generally
get there
safe.
First because there's generally a queue.
Exactly. Well, hey, thank you so very much. I appreciate it, and I think here's my final thoughts. I think a television producer should find you, and with all of the stories that you have, create just like the daily, weekly, or the weekly crime series of just your experiences in life. I love sitting here listening to those, and the wealth of knowledge that you have is just amazing in the industry. So thank you.
They try because my wife's just retired from the BBC after 38 years.
And they tried, and no luck.
Well.
There's still time. There's still time.
Yeah.
Alan, thank you very much, sir.
Thank you, Kevin.
I really appreciate it. And for everyone else, we're going to be going live throughout the week. Today is Friday. Yeah, today's Friday. And then it's going to be Sir Thomas after that. So don't forget that when he goes. But we're going to be back here we're going to probably go live again one more time today. And then back on Monday, again, we're live at the IACIS training event for 2024 in Orlando, Florida. So again, thank you very much, Alan.
My pleasure.
I appreciate it. And I do agree London is a civilization, a civilized city. It's one of my favorite cities by far. We were talking real quick. We were talking fish and chips before because I can't find any real good places here in the U.S. And he's going to clue me in on a place. And then if you guys are really interested, I'll share it with you.
I'll just look it up.
Excellent. Hey, thank you very much. And we'll see you guys later. Thanks.
Take care. Bye.